Hi everyone, I'm Mike Lewis, day 2 of the New Marketing Summit, and I'm really happy to be here with Gaudet from TreediaLabs. And I don't want to talk about your company, so I'll let you introduce yourself, tell a little bit about who you are, what you do, and a little bit about Treedia.
Great. My name is Gaudet. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of TreediaLabs. And TreediaLabs is a podcast aggregator and distributor. So we take podcast feeds from all over the world, aggregate them, and distribute them to things like websites, mobile devices, set-top boxes, etc. So kind of think of us, we're kind of like the engine that serves iTunes on the podcast side, but for everybody that isn't Apple.
Which is most of us, right?
Which
well,
is,
no, maybe not most of us, I don't know.
But we still work with iTunes, so life is good. The key thing to remember about what we are doing is we're taking content and we're helping people find audiences. And at this event, we've actually announced new capability in which case you can actually turn your podcasts into a lead generator.
Very cool.
So you can get a premium channel on the podcast.com site, and before a user can download or play your content, we ask them demographic questions that the company needs asked, and we get their contact information.
That's great, and that's not being done.
That's not being done anywhere, yeah.
That's really cool. So one of the questions I have is I've talked to a lot of people here, and a lot of them are B2B marketers, and I say, you guys using podcasts? And I said, well, not really. We tried a couple of years ago. It's not working. Are people downloading podcasts? Are they listening to them? What do you guys see on your end, especially for a B2B market?
Absolutely. What we're seeing is, just in the United States alone, a doubling between 2007 and 2008 in terms of the number of people actually listening or watching podcasts.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And a lot of B2B companies as well.
Oh, yes. Imagine. In fact, go to podcast.com and start searching by company name. Just put like IBM or Cisco, just major companies in there, and you'll see the podcasts they're putting out there now.
That's really cool. So people who are starting podcasts at home, because I'm sure there are going to be a lot of people who are trying to figure out, what do I need to do? How do I get going? How do you get started?
Well, I'm a podcaster too.
Oh, cool.
I actually do my own weekly podcast on politics. It's called Politalk.
Interesting. Yeah. So I imagine you must be very busy lately then.
Oh yeah, I'll tell you, it's a great time to be doing a political podcast. I'll tell you that much.
Especially Sarah Palin alone.
Oh goodness.
My God.
There's so much to talk about. It's great.
So how do you get started in it? If I was going to start one, what would be the first things I'd need to do?
There's plenty of ways to do it. If you can go to companies like Blog Talk Radio, which is a company that allows you to literally pick up the phone and create a podcast. It's all over the phone. And they will then take it and create the file from that and distribute the file through places like podcast.com. So they automatically submit that to podcast.com, and that's free. And you can submit your podcast to podcast.com, and it's all free. You become part of the 75,000 plus podcasts that are on there.
Wow. Unbelievable. So what about like editing and stuff like that?
The editing that can be done on a Blog Talk Radio, they pretty much take the conversation that you did and do it. Now, they may provide some added value around editing. I'm not quite sure about that. Yeah. What I do for my podcast is I actually do it via Skype. And I record the conversation on Skype, and then I go into GarageBand.
And you just edit it
out? And I just edit the ums and ahs out. And then put a little bumper music on the front.
Oh, that's great. So it's actually relatively easy, because I think a lot of people have a hesitancy to jump into podcasting because it seems like I've never done it before. It seems like an awful lot of work. I don't know even where to post it after, and that's obviously one of the reasons that I wanted to sit down and talk to you.
There's lots of hosting companies out there that will allow you to take the file that you create. Say you create an audio file, MP3, right? They will take it, they will host it for you, and they'll create the RSS so that it can be distributed to places like iTunes and podcast.com.
That's great. So what tips and tricks, if you have any, for newbie podcasters? What should they bear in mind as they put together both the content, the technical side, whatever you think?
Well, you talked about B2B, right? One of the things that you should look at as a company if you wanted to get into podcasting, which is different than as a personal person like myself doing something I'm very passionate about on the political side. If you're going to do it from a company point of view, you want to leverage it to get your message out, to do training, to help the market understand what's going on in your product space or services space. And then it's not a product pitch. It becomes an educational component that people start to subscribe to. And as you're doing regular podcasting, you become the person that person gets their information from. So it's another way for that person to get information. So what we're finding is, particularly on the audio podcast, people are downloading them and listening to them in their car.
Interesting. Very cool.
So or their train commute, or on the plane. So places that you don't have access to the internet, they're loading these podcasts up and taking them with them. So it's anytime, anywhere.
You know, it's funny, I was talking to a company last week and they said, you know, they're trying to figure out new ways to go to market with stuff. And I said, have you thought about podcasts? And they said, you know, we tried it 2 years ago, but we didn't have a big audience, so we just kind of canned it, and our audience doesn't like it. So we did a survey, and long story short, it came back, it turns out that 40% of their current customers listen to podcasts more than twice a month, right? So I said, now it's just a question of you want to become part of that 40, you want to be part of that 40%, right? So how do you become one of those 2 podcasts? What advice do you have for getting out there? And I know this goes back to kind of the marketing, side of stuff, but how do you get people to sign up and listen to your podcast?
Well, one of the things that we do at podcast.com is we take our podcasts and we make them very search engine friendly. So, I mean, it's a function of our domain, but also how we do our SEO capability. And by developing a channel, we get incredible search engine optimization out of that. For the individual company, though, it doesn't stop there. You should take your regular marketing materials, let people know. Whether it's your website, whether it's a flyer, let people know that there's information available from that company as a podcast. And the audience will start to find you.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, I think we might be running out of time, so I just want to say thanks again. I feel bad that we have to kind of cut it short a little bit, but it was great to sit down and talk with you, and I'm excited to be. We're just launching our new podcast through you guys. So
that's right. The New Marketing Summit will be having its own channel on podcast.com, so we're very excited to see that, and you can see great content like this, hopefully.
Yeah,
on
no
that channel.
question. It'll be up there. No
Great.
question. Well, thanks again. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Mike.
it.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.